So what we have here is a couple of Macintosh games, 1000 Miles and Mille Bornes. Why am I reviewing them both at once? Because they're both essentially the same game. They are computer clones of the Parker Brothers card game Mille Bornes. The card game itself goes back to 1953. 1000 Miles is a monochrome version made for the Mac in 1987 by Robert Harris and will work on Mac OS 6 systems. And Mille Bornes is a polished color version made in 1992 by Greg Abbas, which works on OS 7 or later. Oh, and they're both $10 shareware titles, so they also share that similarity. So, from what I can tell, Mille Bornes is meant to be a card game about a road race. A road race which I can only assume is filled with deceit, lies, sabotage, illegal upgrades, and posing as a freaking emergency vehicle. Whatever it takes to win. So, this is basically a card game about illegal street racing. Yay for the French? Mille Bornes is French for 1,000 milestones, and that is the core mechanic of this game. The main cards are distance cards of 25, 50, 75, 100, and 200, and you can only play two 200 distance cards in one hand. Your main goal is to be the first to get to 700 miles, or kilometers, or whatever, it works the same. However, whoever wins the race can extend the race to 1,000 distance units if they so choose. For each of these finish points, they must be reached exactly. You cannot play over 700 or 1,000 whatevers. Each game is played over multiple hands until at least one player goes over 5,000 points after a hand, and then whoever has the highest points wins. Each kilometer traveled gains you a point, winning gives you 400 points, and if you extend the race and win, you gain an extra 200 point extension bonus. There's also a 300 point delayed action bonus for completing the trip after the draw pile is gone, a 300 point safe trip bonus for completing the trip without playing any 200 mile cards, and a 500 point shutout bonus if you can complete the trip without your opponent playing any distance cards. Which is kinda mean, it's not like the other player didn't have enough to deal with already, not gaining any distance and all. So it seems innocent enough so far, but to slow down your opponent, there are 4 different types of hazard cards. Out of gas, which I can only assume is by puncturing the fuel tank, flat tire, accident, and a stoplight. There's also a speed limit card, which lets that person only play 25 or 50 arbitrary distance unit cards. Each of these hazards has a remedy card, the gasoline, spare tire, repair, go, or roll. It's called either one, I don't really know why they call it roll. And end of limit. The green light cards are also necessary to get going after playing one of the first 3 remedy cards. So the go cards are kind of important. For each hazard, there are also safety cards, which grant you immunity to a hazard for the rest of the hand. There's the extra gas tank, the puncture-proof tire, the driving ace, and the right-of-way, the only card that prevents 2 hazards at once, stop and speed limit. It also makes it so you don't have to play a roll card after a remedy card, so the right-of-way card is probably the best card in the entire game. On top of that, each safety played gives you a 100 point bonus, and if you play all 4 safeties, you get an extra 700 points on top of that. Also, playing a safety also fixes the hazard card it goes to. Not to mention playing a safety doesn't even take up your turn either, so you get to play another card. But in this game's interesting twist, it doesn't mean you'll want to play a safety card immediately when you get it, as there's a very nifty bonus involving safety cards. The coup fourré is the best way to play a safety card, which is immediately after your opponent plays the corresponding hazard. If you pull this off, you get an extra 300 points and the hazard is immediately discarded rather than only fixing it, meaning you don't have to play a go card to get yourself rolling again. See what I did there? A coup fourré is indicated by the safety card being played sideways, or if you're playing the color Mille Bornes in bold. But you can't bold a card, that's just silly. Play it sideways. You know, even though it means foul play, I just like the sound of that. Coup fourré. Sounds romantic almost. But then again, it's French, what doesn't? Anyway, moving on. One of the key strategies of this game is remembering how many of each card is in the deck, and watching what's been discarded by the opponent is a very important strategy in this game. For example, if there's no flat tire cards left, you don't need to keep that spare card around now, do you? Things like that really helps you win. So which version to get? I'd say just get both, but then I'm the kind of obsessive-compulsive collector sort of person. Sort of. Anyway, 1,000 miles is less than 100 kilobytes and Mille Bornes is closer to 500, but you can still fit them both on a double-sided floppy disk. Single-sided if you only wanted 1,000 miles. Sadly, a main disadvantage of either version is the distinct lack of a multiplayer option. I can kind of understand why. Keeping people from peeking at each other's hands would be hard if they both played on the same screen. Some kind of option for Apple Talk or some other way of LAN multiplayer would have been pretty nice. But then maybe they figure if you want to play multiplayer, you'll just go out and buy the card game. On the other hand, both versions of the game also have some very nice features, like being able to double-click on a card to play it in the right place, meaning you don't have to drag cards all over like I did most of the time, because I didn't know that feature really existed. Hey, shut up, I found it on accident. There is a few subtle differences between the two versions. The first and slightly bigger one is the AI. The AI in Mille Bornes seems a little more intelligent than the AI in 1000 Miles. The biggest difference that I could see anyway is the computer in 1000 Miles never seems to extend the race, meaning it doesn't live up to its namesake, while the opponent in Mille Bornes is more than happy to extend the race to 1000 milometers if it's kicking your butt. The other difference is the way the games handle the cards. 1000 Miles handles them somewhat realistically. The biggest example being if you have a right-of-way card. When you play a remedy card, there's no indication that you can play a light year card now, but that's just the way the card game would be. Though it does still put up a remedy card on top of a hazard card if you play a safety, so it's not entirely realistic. On the other hand, Mille Bornes always shows your current state. For example, if you play a remedy while you have the right-of-way card, it'll show a green light card, telling you that you can play those parsec cards that are stacking up in your hand. Also, Mille Bornes does have some nice card sound effects and some fancy-looking color graphics like you're playing on some sort of marble play area. There's not really any differences that are too huge. The biggest gameplay difference is the computer player's slight difference in skill, really. So, if you happen to have a classic color Mac laying around, load Mille Bornes on. Or 1000 Miles also, if you like to go monochrome once in a while. I won't judge you. If you have a monochrome System 6 computer around, load 1000 Miles on. It is fun, and if you play with people, maybe it'll make some decent practice for when you get around the table and play some cards. If you're going to emulate, though, be warned, Mille Bornes needs a newer build of Basilisk 2. If you use an older build, you get this. Ugh. This is Tanara Kuranov signing off, and although we tied in games, if we were playing for money, the computer would owe me.